Again.
The Lambda new application. That was one of the handouts that was on the desk for you today. I would like for everybody to join. I'm sorry, I did not previously mention there is a monetary cost. For your membership, it's $30, but with the $30 membership, you get a cord, and you guys can have your cords and wear them on. This is for the National Radiology Honor Society.
Oh, okay.
It comes with a nice cord.
It
and this
says $50 though. Is it 30?
That's for expedited shipping.
Okay.
If we go ahead and take care of it now, last year's class, what I did is everybody gave me their application and I just did one big submission. So y'all tell me how you can individually send it, but she's gonna send the cords to me. She's not gonna send them to you. And we do the pinning ceremony. I'm planning for the pinning ceremony to be probably that last Tuesday before the spring break, which will be next semester. We want to do it nice this year. We want you guys to be able to invite family members, have a family member pin you of your selection, close friend. But I need everybody, for this to work and be nice, I need everybody to join. And don't charge it to my heart, charge it to my mind that I had not previously mentioned it. All right. So let's set us a deadline. When is a good deadline for everybody to either give it to me or individually mail it off?
16th.
December 16th?
Yeah.
Is that works for everybody? Because that way she can get the course and we'll all have them back at the same time. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk about, is that on the end of the week?
I'm not sure. I just gave the middle of the month to kind of give people a chance to make some money.
Yeah, well, do we need to wait and do it in January when we first come back?
That may be better.
When we come back.
So the first day of the semester, I want to say is January 9th, right?
Oh, that's probably better, right?
It's the 9th?
I gotta look it up.
Okay.
Oh my God. Remember that we're in the home stretch this time, you guys, so we only have one more semester and y'all are done.
Do you have like the chapter name and all that?
So it's the Atlanta Technical College chapter. You put my name as the advisor.
Can I tell you?
Well, y'all decide. You can individually send it if that's easier for you, but make a check
That's
and make the
easier.
check payable to, and we'll do a vote. Why don't I just send out a survey and we do a vote? Okay. And then let's think about a dress code. I'll put that on there too. I want everybody to look uniform and nice. So should we all wear black and white to our pinning ceremony? But that'll be up for discussion because we have a couple of people that won't be here today. What's your title? What did we put on there last time?
You said advisor.
Yes, I'm your advisor. And we also need to, so I'm trying to get the organization recognized on campus again so that we could potentially get support for our event that day and have some food and everything. So we're gonna have to at some point elect officers, nominate officers. So that's something else I want you guys to think about. And I'll probably include all of that in a survey. So do we have 2 people that would like to be president? Okay, so we got 2 running for president. 2 for vice president. Okay, so Laura will be vice president. And then we'll do a vote. And then treasurer and secretary.
I'll back up as one of those.
Okay.
If I don't make vice president.
You the other way. Lauren. It's funny.
And we want to try to plan at least one community service event that we can do before you guys graduate, okay? Whether it's,
It'll be next semester.
yeah, it'll be next semester.
I might be the secretary. I don't know yet.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you,
Or
guys.
the treasurer. Let me be the treasurer. Make sure the money's.
Yeah, keep track of that.
Right.
Any questions for me so far?
No.
Okay. So we're on chapter 9, and chapter 9 is breaking down the effects. So one additional thing before we finalize our projects, you want to add an effect. You're going to decide whether it's a stochastic effect or a lake tissue effect and you're gonna make it look different on your model, and then we're done with the model project, okay? Any questions about that before,
So we just pick one of the ones we're going over
that we're
today?
gonna talk about today?
Okay.
Did everybody label theirs? Get all of their areas labeled? 'Cause this should be an easy grade.
Easy.
Do these computers print to something?
No, but you could send it to me and I could, print it for you. I don't know why. I guess this computer ain't been on and it's just acting bananas. Everybody have their devices today? Okay.
Is that a device?
That works too. It's not downloading the PowerPoint for some reason. It's just showing it.
You got a PowerPoint for it?
Yes, I've uploaded it, right? Y'all said Emma running late too, right?
Yes.
Has anybody heard from Tanya P? I mean, not P, yeah, Power, cause Bell here. Nobody heard from Tanya? Come on, y'all, okay, let's start. I don't want us to, we got too much to do today. And y'all see this computer wanna act bananas. It just completely froze up.
I was trying to look at one of those. I don't know, it said the application must be tight.
Must be tight. It don't have to be tight. It said that? Let me send you guys the link to the application there. And then y'all can type it in, but you gotta sign it, right? Or do I have to sign it?
You got to sign it.
Yeah.
Good morning.
So we supposed to
Yeah, at
sign
the
it.
bottom you sign it.
Let me send you guys the link to the Word doc then. And then y'all just send it back to me completed, but you're gonna have to save it. Oh, she did, that's new then. Cause I guess so she can make sure your information is legible. Cause last year we just,
While you doing that, did I bring my phone in here? I don't even know.
I'm gonna do it right now so that we don't forget. Okay, let's, I'm multitasking, you guys. So within this chapter, we wanna understand how radiation affects the body. And we understand that better by evaluating it on curves. So you're gonna have either a linear, non-linear, and you're gonna have threshold versus non-threshold. So that's pretty much what this chapter breaks down, so we can get a better understanding of that. So what scientific measure do we use to help us to understand the effects of radiation? Any guesses?
Scientific measure.
What's the science behind us understanding what's occurring in the body when it's
Bioradiation.
in epidemiology? So they want to know what's going on in that area where you're being exposed to the radiation that could also add value to how your body's going to respond to its effects to it. Okay.
Okay.
So what is epidemiology? Epidemiology is the science that deals with the incident or distribution of the control of a disease in a population. So it's population specific. All right, so people who live in Cali, it's gonna be evaluated different than us here in Georgia. People that live in Maryland, DC, because it's based on their area, what they have. What are some of the factors that may play a role in the effects of radiation on them there, plus their outside
Their
atmosphere?
genealogy.
Their genealogy, whether there's a lot of factories that's exposing chemicals that could be radiation or have some radiation backgrounds. All of that play a role in it. So because this PowerPoint is not one, let me just restart the computer for the sake of. Oh, it wants to update. I don't need it to update, y'all, because it probably would take forever, right? So it's a quick one. So the relationship is described with the term radiation dose response relationship. So that helps us to break down what's occurring. And then you utilize the diseases also to help us to understand. So what are some of the diseases that are associated with
What?
radiation exposure?
Cancer.
Cancers, leukemia, cataracts sometimes are
Mhm.
affected by it.
Genetic mutation.
Genetic mutations. Any guesses of any, Tanya?
What you mean? Any guesses of what? I'm sorry, go my service. What's up?
What effects, what outcomes do we have from radiation exposures?
Yeah.
You talking about weight?
I mean,
Yeah.
how many times you've been exposed or?
So what are some of the diseases? We talked about cancer, we talked about leukemia, we talked about cataracts, genetic
The
mutation.
R syndrome.
So in the effort for us to understand, we associate this with the dose relationship curves, okay? And it could either be threshold or non-threshold.
Did I take all three of them?
What you talking about, Jessica?
Nothing.
So, like with threshold, it's like, how can I put it? Threshold is like where you, long as you at that threshold or below, it don't affect you like that, like your cancers and stuff. And once you go over the threshold, is that considered non-threshold?
Wait one second.
Threshold is like, you won't see any effects until you hit the threshold.
Correct.
And then once you hit it and you go over threshold, you'll see like, exponential
Effects.
effects.
And so whether those effects are constant, so once you hit that threshold, so you have linear, you have non-linear, which may be curvy, and then you have sigmoid, which is S-shaped, and then you have quadratic. So if it's linear, so once you hit, if it's linear threshold, once you receive that amount that's necessary for an effect to be visible or to be seen or noticed, it's constant. If it's non-linear threshold, once you hit it, it's not constant. It fluctuates.
Like acute radiation sickness.
Yes. Okay. That kind of help the bigger picture. And I'm gonna catch you up with everything when we go on break, okay?
So
Okay.
looking at this picture, so non-threshold, let's say represents 1, whereas over the radiation dose, non-threshold curve, freaking 9-1A. Just,
So are you looking at A1? Okay.
it's straight, non,
So that's
I guess a linear, straight line.
non-threshold, right? Because it started, so to differentiate threshold versus non-threshold. So we have our graph. So if it starts at 0, then that's what?
Linear,
That's linear what? Is it threshold or non-threshold?
non-threshold.
Non-threshold,
Threshold.
because it did not take any specific amount of radiation for the exposure to be noticed. If it's linear threshold, we over here. Okay?
Yeah.
If it's non-linear, non-threshold, we're here. Alright. If we threshold non-linear, we are here. Okay. And it can have varying different curves. It may start out high, drop low, go back high, or it may start out high, drop low. Okay, but just know if it's at 0, it requires it's no threshold. If I get 1 millisievert of exposure, my body's affected. I might want to draw this, write it down, because this is gonna be.
That's pretty cool.
I just sent out the email for the. So what effects fall into these categories? It's kind of it's still
Somatic.
it's still kind of unclear. It's still not clearly defined, but the Committee of Biological Effectiveness of Ionizing Radiation, or BEIR, BEIR, helps us to better understand, along with the National Academy of Science, studied the stochastic effects. What are the stochastic effects?
Cancerous.
So those are the effects.
Late.
Hereditary effects. at
Like
low
lady
dose
effects.
levels.
So write down this definition for stochastic, because you're gonna see it. And it's on the PowerPoint, if I could ever get this stuff up there. So the stochastic effects are those effects are, for an example, like mutations or random occurring biological changes, independent of dose. So if they're independent of dose, that means they are threshold or non-threshold.
Non-threshold.
Non-threshold. Independent of dose.
So the stochastic effects are basically the quadratic ones.
These effects occur in months or years after high level or possibly low level radiation exposures. So if they can occur with varying levels, that means they're non-threshold, right? They could be right away, or they could be gradual. And you may also see them referred to as the probabilistic effects. Yes, that's another name for stochastic effects. So they are mutations or randomly occurring biological changes that are independent of dose. They may be visible in months or years after high or low dose exposures. Some examples of stochastic effects are cancers and genetic effects. Do I need to repeat that?
Yeah, one more time.
Alright, stochastic effects are the mutations or randomly occurring biological changes that may present themselves at low or high dose radiation exposures that may recur immediately or months or years later after the exposure. And some examples are cancers and genetic mutations. And they're also referred, some examples of them are cancer and genetic mutation.
And referred to as
Probabilistic effects. Y'all know that definition may be on your, test, right? You may be asked to define stochastic effects.
Our finals are next week, right?
Yes.
I
And
mean,
I'm still
we're-
trying to debate. No, in person, I wanna see y'all.
We have a long break though.
Yeah, after that, we don't see y'all again until January. I'm not gonna, I'm still debating. This test for 1200, class we're in now, will be chapters 8 and 9 for sure. I'm just gonna focus, 9 and 10.
Oh,
9 and 10 only. And maybe some things that I want you to remember, those numbers.
are we taking them both on the same day?
Yeah.
Didn't we go over 10 already?
Y'all
We
did?
gonna go back over. Oh, okay.
9 and 10. And then I'm
we went over 10.
Yes, 9 and 10. Probably no more than 50 questions.
50.
No more than. Which means it could be 25, it could be 30, but no, not to exceed 50. 1085, Ms. Wallace has been toiling and pondering and piddling and trying to decide. I may just have y'all do an essay question for me for 1085.
Yes, please.
And give y'all 3 options. I will probably tell y'all by the end of this week what those questions are gonna be. So you're gonna come in, you're gonna sit down, and you're gonna explain something in detail, and that's gonna be it, is what I'm thinking. But I will give it to you this Friday so that you can prepare the 3 questions, but you won't know what question you gonna have on yours. Y'all kind of feel where I'm going?
Yeah.
It may be explain what's occurring in,
Test. I wanna test.
you gonna have this weekend to work on it.
Speak for
Send
yourself.
it down.
Speak for yourself.
A minimum of 5 sentences. It may be, I may present the diagram of the circuitry. We're gonna go over it today. Angel.
Circuitry is the death of
That's
me.
the worst part.
But
That's
we're gonna
not
break it down today. We're gonna
What
go
year?
over it today. Whatever we get through today, that's gonna be the root of what the essay question will be. And you may have the first phase, the second phase, or the third phase. And you just break down what's occurring in there.
Mm.
Can I have 40, 50 questions, but one per
Oh, you don't want an essay? 5 sentences?
Look,
I'm fine.
you're the ones who want them 50 questions, them 50 questions.
And then somebody else essay?
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, cause nobody got time for that room right there.
Second language.
Just get whoever wants,
I
if they
just,
want them
I
50
want it to
questions,
be
they
over
flunk
stuff
it.
that I know
That's
I've
all
gone over with you guys.
I'll do the essay.
I'll do it, I'm just nervous about it.
And y'all gonna be fine.
If they want them 50
So-
questions, get them.
Just a quick recap, because it looks like it's gonna come up in a minute. So the radiation dose response relationships demonstrate that, it's that graph that demonstrates to us what the observed effects are to the radiation exposures to the dose of radiation received. So if I receive 1 millisievert of radiation, what is it gonna do? If I receive 5, what is it gonna do? And it's showing me that relationship graph.
Like you say, what is it gonna do in regards to, like?
What effects it'll have on the
effects?
body. It's how we use the dose response curves. We talked about the curves either being straight lines, also known as linear, or nonlinear curve, having some degree of curvature.
And you said the curvature ones are the stochastic ones? Stochastic?
So, stochastic,
Stochastic?
stochastic,
Stochastic?
yes.
Sure.
I see it and I know it. I can say it.
So those of you who have your books, let's look at the graphs. I want to make sure you fully understand these graphs, okay? Because it's going to be the root of the test. So on page 155, figure 191, 1 represents a linear, non-threshold curve relationship. 2 is a straight line or linear threshold because it does not happen at 0. Number 3 is a nonlinear threshold. We're on 155. And the one on the bottom, B, is a sigmoid or S shape. Alright, so sigmoid is nonlinear. And we generally see the sigmoid curves used to describe radiation therapy dosage because you have such high dosage there.
You said describe what?
Radiation therapy dosage. Alright, so definition of threshold. Threshold is a point at which a response or reaction to an increased stimulation first occurs. I'll repeat. It's the point at which a response or reaction to an increased stimulation first occurs.
The point at which a response or reaction to an increased stimulation first occurs.
So below that threshold, no biological effects are observed. So the biological effects will only occur when that threshold level has been met. Non-threshold is the radiation absorbed dose of a magnitude and its capabilities to produce the biological effect. I'll repeat. It's the non-threshold is that radiation absorbed dose of any magnitude and its abilities to produce a biological effect. So for linear non-threshold curve, biological effect responses will be caused by ionizing radiation in living organisms in a direct proportional manner all the way down to the dose levels approaching zero.
Linear?
This is linear non-threshold. I'll repeat. Linear non-threshold curve biological effect responses will be caused by ionizing radiation in living organisms in a directly proportional manner all the way down to the dose levels approaching zero. Which means no radiation dose is considered safe.
That's what linear non-threshold means?
Yes.
No radiation dose is considered safe.
So if you're on page 155 again and you're looking at figure 9.2, it shows us that graph. And the relationship is no dose. All doses are a problem. At some point, y'all, let me pull up the PowerPoint for y'all to follow along. All right, the risk models. The risk models helps us to classify what's occurring. We talked about the Committee of Biological Effectiveness and how they were formed in 1980. And they help to orchestrate the curves for us to understand what's occurring. So not only do you have linear, nonlinear, threshold, non-threshold, you have linear quadratic. So a linear quadratic curve says basically I've been exposed to this radiation. It was a lot over time, and then I had more radiation that decreased, and then it increased again because I was exposed to more. So we know that stochastic effects are cancer or hereditary effects, and they can be low or high dosage, and they appear to follow a linear quadratic non-threshold curve because they can be high or low. Alright, so the linear quadratic curve helps us to understand the stochastic effects because they can be at high or low levels, and it could be seen right away or could be seen months or years later.
Unpredictable.
Yes, that's why it's probabilistic. Y'all done read, I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all done read or y'all following along because y'all giving me feedback and y'all helping me today.
I'm following along. Nice.
Is it making sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So the it's not making sense?
No, because when you say something, then I look at it in the book. It's like the book contradict what you're saying somewhere on some of it.
What
Like you just said high and low lead on the
So stochastic effects
The,
can be from high
linear-
level or low level radiation.
quadratic, but the book keeps saying low lead.
So when it's low, it's at that lower threshold. So if you're looking at the low levels, we're here.
Mm-hmm.
But then it goes high levels, we're here.
Okay.
So these are the biological effects.
Okay.
And this is the radiation dose. So I'm at a low dose down here, and then, this is 0, and this is going bigger. So as you're over here, this is a high dose radiation, right?
So that's why you say low lead and high lead. Okay.
Anybody else confused by that? Because I see where Miss.
You gotta like add in the numbers at the bottom yourself.
Yeah, so
Pretend there's like scales. Like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I totally understand where Ms. Clark was confused. I want to make clarity to it before I go on. I'll hand it to you.
You see it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
thank you.
when you're looking at the curve, this is dose, this is the response. So this is 0, this is 10. So with your quadratic, it's when I say low to high, this is low dosage here, and up here is high dose. Y'all see that? So that's why that curve helps to describe the stochastic effects. Y'all got it? We need some newer markers. Any questions?
Oh, it says the quadratic one is for diagnostic radiology.
Yes, that's the next point that I was gonna make.
Sorry.
No,
What now?
No. Because in diagnostic radiology, certain procedures we use low dose, certain procedures we use high dose. So it's not, so if you're doing a chest, you can do a chest, patient may receive 0.6 millisieverts of radiation. But if you do a total spine and you do all the obliques, they're exposed to high dose at that point because we've taken a lot of films. So that's why it has that linear quadratic curve, and it helps us to understand what's going on at the diagnostic level. Okay.
That makes sense. Thank you for saying.
Let's try this again with PowerPoint. So I mentioned that the BEER, or the Committee of Biological Effectiveness on Ionizing Radiation, which was established in 1980, helped us to get these curves and understand the relationships. So currently, that committee recommends us using linear, non-threshold curves to describe most cancers. Why we think that?
Which one is this?
The committee suggests that we use linear, non-threshold curves to describe the radiation doses
Oh.
that reflect cancer. Why is that?
Because they're stochastic and they can kind of just occur whenever,
Yes.
and
Because
it's,
it depends on the individual and their genetics and.
Yeah.
It's so much going on. So you can't say,
there's no threshold. for
you
like-
have a chest x-ray, I have a chest x-ray, everybody in here have a chest x-ray, and then we're gonna end up with some type of cancer.
Yeah,
It's not, it doesn't work like that. It
there's
works,
no like threshold for cancer, like,
yes. That's why it's recommended that we use the linear, non-threshold curve to help understand the cancer effects. Alright, that's a question, y'all.
Repeat one more.
We use the linear, non-threshold curve to describe the effects of radiation that causes cancer because it's different for everybody.
The non-linear.
Linear,
linear.
non-threshold.
Oh,
So that, the linear non-threshold, you may see it abbreviated as LNT, and it implies that the biological response to ionizing radiation is directly proportional to dose received. That's because we got that straight line, there's no dips. I'm almost ready to double check me on work, okay? Y'all see it? Do I need to turn all the lights out?
it's dark enough that I can.
So some advocates agree that no radiation level is absolutely safe. Alright, you may not see a response right away after receiving it, but down the road you may. That's because all radiation exposures cause some level of potential biological harm or damage. Right? But we know that the dosage that we do in routine diagnostic outweigh the risk, right? If somebody's presenting themselves and they need a chest x-ray, you're gonna forego and do that chest x-ray to get better prognosis and help them move forward, especially if they have some flu, some RSV, some pneumonia. Treat that
It's more immediate.
versus having to worry about the ongoing not doing it and worry about them being exposed to radiation. Cause they'll die from pneumonia, RSV, COVID if left untreated versus them not having this radiation and us treating the symptoms that they're currently having. Alright? So that's kind of how you have to explain to the patient. Don't use those words because Ms. Wallace went harsh.
Yeah.
So soften it up. Because sometimes they present to you and they present crazy. And it's like, you didn't have that conversation with your doctor before they sent you here? But
They
okay.
ask me about the lead all the time.
And why they're not.
Like, no, they'll be like, oh, if I'm allowed in their room, like, why would you, like, why do I have to wear the lead then? Like, what's the lead for? Like, oh, wow, is this gonna be dangerous?
Well,
And then-
especially with you being at the pediatric
Yeah,
facility
so
and
the
with the
will
parents.
do-
And then they're like, okay,
their
you
kids
put me
get
on,
an X-ray and like maybe they're doing a abdomen, so there's no shield, and then
but you
the
putting this
parent put
full
a
suit
full
of armor
apron
on me.
on.
It's like,
they're kind
what
of
about my child?
yeah, they start looking at you weird, and I'm like,
It's funny, when I'm at the kids ask the questions, the parents are just like, let's go.
yeah, yeah,
So the biological
yeah.
committee believes that linear quadratic non-threshold, also known as LQNT, is more accurate reflection of the stochastic, somatic, and genetic effects at low dose levels for low linear energy radiation. Y'all remember us talking about what's somatic? What's somatic?
Like immediate.
That's body, right?
Yeah.
The whole body. Genetics is
Cell.
DNA information, yes. What is linear energy transfer? It's how much radiation we receive to our bodies and how much is it transferred to be an effect. Okay. So leukemia, breast cancer, and hereditary damages follow the LQNT, which means low doses is down here in the bottom somewhere, but high doses you see more of a reaction. That's that curve I just did that reflect back to figure 9.7. Or can I put it in high gear? The dose models also predict significant radiation exposures to our skin for erythema, hematologic depressions, and they reflect the graphical equation of linear threshold dose response. Meaning I have to receive so much before my skin looks burned or before my skin looks like it's been radiation exposed. So the biological response to dose does not occur below a specific level for those thresholds. The experiments have been done on animals for them to evaluate and give us this information. So this is what the threshold linear curve looks like. It does not start at 0. So when it starts down at 0, it's a non-threshold. But when it goes out, it's threshold. I got to receive 5 millisieverts before I see that response. The other curve that we're going to talk about is the sigmoid or S shape, which is also nonlinear. This threshold curve shows us the relationship and general employment of radiation therapy to high dose cellular responses to the absorbed dose to specific areas. And they primarily look at the skin, the lens of the eye, and blood cells. Because that's targeted radiation to a specific area. We want to know how that body part is responding to those different doses. Its effects require very minimal dose to be visualized. So the tail of the curve shows us the limited recovery. Because my eyes received all these high doses of contrast over the last 6 months, how is it recovering? Can I still see? Do I have cataracts? Or how is my skin? I had brain cancer. They gave me all these high dose radiation for 6 months. How is my tissue surrounding the area? Do I have necrosis? What is necrosis?
Death.
Other
Cell death.
Okay. At very high radiation doses, the curve gradually levels off. Because, okay, I received 6 months of it, now I'm done. They monitor me, don't see any effects. So the responses are going what? Down. All right, so a lot of patients look burned while they're receiving it, that's high. But then after that it's done, they're not receiving it anymore, their skin starts to normalize, it comes back down. Because the cells what? Repair themselves. I remember learning about that. So some cells can repair themselves. So this is what the sigmoid or S-shaped curve looks like. And that graph is on page 155 still.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, continued use of linear response curves model the radiation protection standards to show us what it looks like, so we won't be terrified of our fear. So we can better explain to our patients what these risks are and what the risk associated with them. It accurately reflects the effects of high LETs or linear energy transfer radiation, such as alpha rays at higher dosage. In established radiation protection standards, the recovery agents have chosen to be conservative with how they use these models and not to overestimate the risk, but to underestimate them. Alright, so somatic effects, we know the somatic effects are to the body. So when living organisms has been exposed to radiation of substantial biological damage, the effects are to the entire body in certain cases. And these effects are broken down into stochastic effects or tissue reactions. So prior, you may see, if you have an older book like Lenore, her book is gonna break it down into stochastic effects and deterministic. So they're replacing deterministic with tissue reactions. So we know what stochastic is. It's the probability that the effect happens depend upon the received dose, but the severity of the dose does not. And it occurs primarily with cancer or genetic mutations. However, tissue reactions are those that have probability, and the effects depends on the dose. So it's gonna occur, but it depends on how much. All right, some categories of these effects. So with late tissue, you got cataract formation, fibrosis, organ atrophy, loss of cells, reduced fertility or sterility.
Shortened lifespan.
Alright. Stochastic effects, I can't stress enough. Y'all know y'all gonna have some questions. It's cancer or genetics.
You want us to know the terror,
No.
the Janet? Okay.
But y'all know TERA is infant related. That's short for, that's the Latin term for birth defect, embryo. So late somatic effects are consequences of radiation exposure that could appear in months or years. We've gone over that. Effects may result in whole body or partial body, and it could be previous dose. So as a child, I was real sick, and I had to get a lot of radiation, a lot of radiation treatments to treat whatever was going on with me. But my effects didn't show up until I was an adult.
Before you move up.
Do I need the balls? Yeah.
I'm just trying to find it in my book.
157.
You heard 157.
Yeah, I'm in it, but I was trying to find.
Using
You
of
go
all
ahead.
this data helps us to better understand the cancer induction, the damage to the unborn, and the genetic effects. So they collect all of this.
this on the web.
They they collect all of this information. And then they put it together to give us these graphs and to help us to better understand these effects. So low-level effects can be summarized as the cell survival. I had the radiation I received was so low, my cell repaired itself, or it caused minimum to no effects that were outward. All right. Theoretically, the radiation damage could just be to a few cells. All right, I was fortunate. I didn't get necrosis to nothing else but that centralized area that they were targeting. Okay. The tissue reactions, however, can be permanent or they can be show a late onset. At the far extreme, when you receive these doses, they can persist over time and you can see them for a lifetime. The major late effects are carcinogenics, cataract genesis, or embryo effects, or birth defects. So these are the late effects that we see. So we're gonna talk about them for a minute, and then we're gonna finish up 9, I'll give y'all a little break, and we're gonna come in, hit 10 hard. Y'all don't need no lunch break today, do you? Okay. Everybody got some snacks?
You got them.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're welcome to the chips, okay? We wanna eat those up and not come in, I want that box empty before next Tuesday. Or by the end of the day next Tuesday. And if we empty it out today, I'll bring something else for next week. So the risk estimates for cancer are broken up into the causes associated with the stochastic effect. If it's high dose, those are measurable doses, right? So low doses, sometimes they're unmeasurable. They're so minute, you can't detect them. But those high doses are the doses that we can detect. So dose level equivalences are like 1/10 of a sievert.
Okay, this section is throwing me off, maybe I can read it out loud. No conclusive proof currently exists that low LET ionizing radiation absorbed doses below 0.1 gray cause a significant increase in the risk of malignancy.
Okay, so that's basically what we're talking about with the stochastic, right? So if it's low, 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 is no evidence where it's gonna be a problem.
So if it's low,
That's talking about like X-rays
I
or.
feel like I'm not
No, it's saying there's no proof that low levels of
That'll
radiation malignancy means cancer, so like, or damage, so like, there's no proof that low levels of malignancy.
So over time, when they've done these studies,
Oh,
they haven't been able to determine that low doses cause the effect.
I was reading, cause I saw the word increase in front.
Okay. Alright, so a low equivalent dose below 1 sievert, which includes groups such as occupational, that's us, and individuals of patients who are in the area, have no direct measure or effects. So they've been studying them and they don't see where those low doses are a problem. That's basically what you were just reading. The risk overshadowed by the causes of cancer in humans have shown to be 0. Got a question?
What about like the NICU babies who get like a chest X-ray every day for like 2 to 3 weeks?
Or until they weigh enough to get out of NICU. They're probably still studying those babies, but that's why they want you to do one X-ray, make it good, and don't have to do any repeat. But if that baby has a lot of things medically going on, they need to know, so they know how to treat today, treat the next day, so those risks of the radiation are minimum to what's going on with that baby. I know a baby who had a heart defect. Born with a heart defect, they knew about the heart defect in vitro. So for 6 months, every day he had a chest X-ray.
Wow.
But he's still here because they needed to know how to treat his heart. He's had 5 heart surgeries. So every time they do something, they still got to follow it. He goes in for surgery, he's in the hospital for 3 to 4 months every time.
How old is that baby?
He is 8.
And
Same.
he's, otherwise he's good?
Yes.
That's good.
So in his case, and in many other babies' cases, when they catch it that early, they're gonna say, okay, we gotta hit this hard, but without a picture, what we do are take pictures, right? They don't know what's internally going on. You don't want them to go in and do exploratory surgery and not know what's going on. I may have some water around too if y'all need Thursday, if y'all didn't bring anything. So current radiation philosophy state utilization of linear non-threshold dose relationships assume that the risks still exist. There are risks, but in certain cases it's so minimal that they're not categorizing it with the dose relationship curve. So that's why we only have cancers and hereditary, and then you have those tissues. So stochastic falls into those categorized. We can see, we know what happens. That's internal, versus the tissue is showing us what's going on outside the body. All right, so my skin had all this radiation. It goes into that tissue effect. Stochastic is explaining internal.
It says this is all
Cancer.
controversial right now.
Yes,
Is this like
it
tied
is
into
right here, a
the-
controversial concept,
Is it tied into like the whole whether or not we need to shield or not thing?
yes. Cause you know their thing now with shielding is, the shielding causes more harm than good.
Like it attracts.
One of the
Really?
Yes, that's what they've been saying, the reason why they don't constantly do it.
So, but like, what about when we so are they saying when we shield pregnant women that's causing more harm yet?
They haven't talked a lot about pregnant women. They talked about us, our age range, and the babies.
They, one of the girls that went to the whole presentation or weekend thing, she said that they are saying the opposite.
That they're going back now saying shielding is necessary. Well, I'm gonna tell you, the shielding thing, ARRT and ASRT have avoided.
Yeah.
When we ask them questions, they say do whatever the facilities are doing. JCERT, they're not hitting that with the 10-foot pole because there's gonna be a lot of issues that's gonna come up behind if you put something in black and white to say it's not necessary.
Yeah.
So I foresee it changing real soon and we go back to strictly shielding. That's why I tell you guys, do the right thing that we're teaching you because textbooks still talk about shielding and the importance behind shielding. We still teach ALAR, you're gonna see ALAR on the test. Irregardless of what they're doing
They're under 40
in the field. Because I guarantee, from between now and 5 years, I bet we'll go back to strictly shielding. Alright, many terms are given to help us to understand this. And two of the terms that we want to be familiar with are absolute risk or relative risk. So these risks help us to understand the specific exposures of ionizing radiation over and above background exposures. What are background exposures? Us being outside, the sun. You going back on?
Yeah, I can't see the zone without it.
Okay, I think Jasmine walking by.
I don't turn
Both models predict the number of excessive cancers or cancers that may not have occurred in the population without the exposure of ionizing radiation. So that's why it's still kind of hard to predict all of the effects to a fine tooth because we outside. Some people work in factories where they're exposed to all kind of radiation from machines. When you fly, there's a degree of radiation in the ground. So that's why it will probably take years for us to fully, you have to have somebody walk around from birth to death with a monitor that's not in our field to accurately be able to account for the environmental versus healthcare exposures and their effects. You know that ain't about that. So absolute risk. So the absolute risk models examples a specific number of malignancies that will occur as a result of an exposure.
Sorry, I just want to ask a quick question. So do flight attendants have to wear something?
No, but don't they should? We are the only protected occupation. Y'all know that, right?
Yeah. Like even people working like nuclear power plants.
Yeah, they don't wear anything. We are the only regulated, protected occupation. And the one that has to go through extensive training and updates on how to keep yourself safe.
That's wild considering the controversy over whether or not our like just X-rays in general are even that dangerous.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Especially when you tell people, you get more radiation from light.
Right.
Because just think about somebody who work outside. Work outside in Arizona. Work outside in Las Vegas where it's just straight dry heat. they need a badge on.
Yeah,
So they can determine how they need to cover up or when they need to come off out there.
yeah.
It's gonna mess up a lot of preparations.
Yeah, they won't care about that.
They don't wanna be like.
Right. They aren't.
So
They
relative
have every
risks
loophole
are
not
the,
to.
so relative risk model predicts that the number of excessive cancers will increase as the nature incidence of cancer increases with advanced age and population. So as I get older, my risks are relative to my age and the outside environment and population. Absolute is what it is. It's not gonna change. There's a graph that helps us to better understand absolute risk versus relative risk, and this is on page 159 of your book. So figure 9.5 is for absolute risk. So I received this exposure. I didn't have any, so during the latent period, I didn't have any effects. No noticeable, no outward or inward results or appearances of that. And as my age and I was more outside and the environment and other results forecasted it, made that change. However, with relative, that excessive incident increased. So with absolute, it's kind of consistent. So the main difference between absolute risk and relative risk is the effects that the excessive incident has on how those risks are categorized. And what's the difference?
So relative is
Effects of the
related
excessive
to-
incidents.
Yes. You're correct. Ms. Clark, you got a question? No? That the difference between the two risks, absolute and relative, is associated with the excessive incident. So how much stuff that I did along with me receiving radiation and radiography caused my risk to be more relative to the excessive incident of the environment. You got it, Tanya P? So the key here is natural incident. So this is to be all related to me being in and around radiation in the field. But then you throw in outside and other things I do. I fly all the time. Then I go get 5 or 6 x-rays every month. You put all that together and it's relative.
We're just getting older.
Yeah. Got a question? Y'all good? Alright, so we know that epidemiology helps us to understand it. They suggest that although radiation dose encountered in diagnostic radiation should be considered to benefit the patient, the information gained from imaging procedures greatly exceeds the minimal theoretical risk to the patient for developing cancer at late stochastic response to radiation exposures. So what is that saying in a nutshell? So basically,
That
the radiation that I'm receiving because of medical
It exceeds-
is worse.
worth it versus outward, yeah.
Because what's the life expectancy age now? What is, how long are people living now?
Like 80s, 90s.
Before it was 60s, but we at 70 now?
Yeah, I think we is 70 or 69.
So they saying,
United States is,
I think it's 76.
I wanna say, what was it, 69 or 70?
Yeah,
But
I thought
Japan, is higher.
Which makes no sense, the retirement age is 65.
it's 70, so Bezrat looked it up, he said US is 77, so where they're,
Males, it's 77.
males is 77? So what is it for females?
Females usually live longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're basically saying, for your life expectancy, that radiation that you're gonna receive due to radiology procedure is not gonna have any bearings on you having late stochastic response.
81 for females.
So models used for researchers to extract extrapolarization of risk from high to low dose data is categorized as linear or linear quadratic. In 1989, the Beer reports supported the linear quadratic model for leukemia only, but now that model suggests that any types of cancer, or for all types of cancers, we want to use the linear quadratic. This is what that linear quadratic model looks like. So radiation-induced cancer. So the laboratory, again, they use animals. And it took 5 to 10 years to develop in humans before you saw a response. The physical appearance of cancer induced by radiation, ionizing radiation, does not appear different than cancers caused by other agencies. So that's why it's so contraindicated, because cancer can occur from varying other things, not just cancer. So you can't always say this patient had cancer because they received some x-rays.
Yeah.
You have to consider all the other factors.
Like maybe they were also a smoker.
Yeah, maybe they had a parent that, there are any number of things that contribute to the cancer manifesting itself. So cancer caused by low-level radiations is difficult to identify. Human evidence of radiation carcinogenesis comes from epidemiological studies conducted many years after subjects were exposed to high dosage of radiation. All right, we ain't gonna focus ourselves on this radiation-induced cancer slide here. This one item, this is just showing what carcinoma looks like in the hand. And this was back in 1904. So that's when they have filters. They didn't have, this probably was straight direct radiation.
Yeah.
So the incidence of leukemia has slowly declined since the 1940s and 1950s, because we've perfected our equipment. It's more safe. We're utilizing the right degree, the right energy levels, and we know a lot more about the science to make the science work for us, not work against us. So the occurrences of these rates for radiation-induced malignancies have continued to escalate, including a variety of solid tumors such as thyroids, breast, lung, and bone cancers. So this next graph is going to show us what it looked like, the dose relationships for leukemia and other cancers as it relates to receiving radiation at great dosage levels of 1/10 of a gray. Right. This is just to show us what happened over time. Now, things that we do want to be familiar with is what happened to those places, Hiroshima, and what happened to those individuals and how they received so much radiation, and did that cause them cancer. So the incidence of breast cancer in Japanese women, a study was shown that Japanese women from the atomic bomb survivors strong evidence of breast cancer because they received those high exposures of radiation. And the incidence of breast cancer in those women was specifically, after they studied them, it was specifically because of that high dose of radiation that they received due to the atomic bombs. Numerous of studies of female survivors indicate a relative risk. What is relative? Age plus environment. For breast cancer ranging from 4 to 1 to as high as 10 to 1. And that's pretty high, y'all. So for every 4 women, 1 had cancer. So the effects of ionizing radiation as cancer-causing agent, although the studies of Hiroshima and Nagasaki confirmed that the high doses of ionizing radiation causes cancer, radiation is not highly effective agent. This study was 82,000 atomic survivors from the 1950s to the 1987s, and it reveals 250 cancer deaths attributed to
It got
radiation.
1978 in here, in the book, not 1987.
It don't.
It got 1978,
What page?
163.
This information here, y'all don't have to know for a test or the registry. It's just FYI, okay? What page again?
163.
It sure does. So I'll fix that. How's that? Okay. So know that it's 78, but this not gonna be a test question.
Okay.
Alright, this, the last few slides are just FYI.
Okay.
The meat of what I want y'all to know, we've gone over it. I'm finna give y'all a break in a minute. Know the curves, know stochastic effects, tissue reactions, what they affect, what the outcomes are, and how to look at them and evaluate those on the curves, okay? So radiation dose and radiation-induced leukemia. So epidemiology indicated that the chances of contracting leukemia as a result of exposure to radiation is directly proportionate to the magnitude of the exposure. So radiation-induced leukemia is assumed to follow a linear, non-threshold dose relationship compared to leukemia in a population that has not been exposed. Now, I do want you guys to know that. Highlight that.
Which one?
Radiation-induced leukemia is assumed to follow a linear, non-threshold dose response and compared with leukemia in a population that has not been exposed to ionizing radiation. So as long as they ain't been exposed to environmental radiation, it's gonna follow the linear, non-threshold. Do y'all need a break?
Mm-mm.
Some people might need to go to the bathroom. Look at you, you went 3 minutes ago. So, most recent reevaluation of the quantity and type of radiation that was released in the city due to Hiroshima and Nagasaki provides a better foundation for radiation dose and damage assessment. Alright, so recently they kind of categorized what type of radiation that the environmental was exposed to, and that was gamma. Inhabitants of Nagasaki was exposed to plutonium bombs, receiving 10% of exposure from neutrons and 90% from gamma. Where does gamma fall on the wave electron spectrum? All the way
Go
up
to the end.
Wave your hand for me. Wave your hand so light. Based on the revised atomic bomb data, radiation-induced leukemias and solid tumors in survivors may be attributed to predominantly to gamma radiation exposures. You walking out because you want to? Does she need a break before I give y'all a break?
She probably gone to the bathroom.
So in conclusion, Chernobyl nuclear disasters, the evacuation of people within 36 hours after the accident had a worldwide effect. Physicians are still attempting to prevent people from getting thyroid cancer as a result of that exposure. You guys, I think I'm just gonna, y'all don't need none of this. Alright, right here, we're gonna pick up right here. I do want you to know this. This is slide 48. So y'all can skip, what was that, 40? Which ones I skipped through? Which ones I skipped through? Y'all remember the number? I'll
I'd
tell
say
you.
we're on page 166 now.
I'll tell you after, during the break, I'll go back and look. So, cataract genesis is what?
Eyes.
It's affecting the,
Yes, yeah.
it affects the eyes.
Eyes.
There's a high probability that a single dose of approximately 2 gray will induce the formation of cataracts. Know that. Cataracts can result in partial or complete loss of vision. This experiment was done on mice, and it follows a threshold nonlinear dose-response relationship. It follows a threshold nonlinear. So I have to receive a certain amount for it to be visual. And it's curvy or non-curvy.
What? Which one?
This,
Non-linear dose linearity is straight.
non-linear,
It's the short one.
non-linear.
That means it's not
Starts at
Oh,
zero.
non-linear. The
Non-linear
curve.
is not straight, it's a curve, okay? So I can ask you a simple question as that, okay? So you wrap your brain around that. Linear straight line, non-linear
Mhm,
curvy.
curve.
Threshold starts at 0 or non-zero.
Non-zero.
Non-zero. Non-threshold can start zero. I'm gonna give y'all a pop quiz for y'all leave today on just them three concepts to make sure you understand.
On what?
Cause that's the meat of what I need y'all to get today. Linear, non-linear. Threshold, non-threshold.
Make it count.
Alright, so A is the eye with cataracts. So cataracts is that little bubble that appear right behind your lens. Alright, and in that bubble is cloudy when you have cataract. Non-cloudy is non-cataract. So if I gave you the graph and asked you to tell me which eye has cataract versus which one, you see what I'm talking about too, right? So
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
bubble in there
Cataract.
is a cataract. This is non-cataract. All right, this part here, the last 6 slides. Let me make sure you know these. So, embryological defects or birth defects, they can occur in stages. Pre-implementation, and what occurs if we have genetic effects at what stage does that occur?
What?
If you have birth defects in pre-implementation. That's 0 to 9 days of
Conception.
conception. Alright,
Oh, I see.
so at 10 to 12 days, what could occur?
Organogenesis.
So organs are affected, right? And 12 to term is
Fetal.
fetal.
So you want us to know these stages and days after conception?
Yep.
Did you email this one? Cause I'm not.
It's not on PowerPoint.
Uh-uh.
I mean on Blackboard.
I mean, I clicked the chapter 9 one and it looked way different.
Okay.
But also my email was like full of this and the ones received emails, so I'm like, give me different emails.
So an embryo is more sensitive during first, second, or third trimester.
First.
So biological effects of ionizing radiation on future generations. So as long as, that's why shielding is highly recommended and important for you to do when you are X-raying pregnant individuals, so you can prevent future generation exposure. So radiation-induced damage to DNA molecules in the sperm and ova. It may manifest at various levels or into various diseases or malformations through development. What can be affected by the radiation?
What you mean what could be affected? The cells, that?
You can have dominant or recessive point mutations. You can have hereditary effects.
Which
You
one?
can
is
have
it?
radiation-induced hereditary effects in humans have not been, in certain cases, they haven't even been demonstrated. So enough studies haven't been done to determine what happens in its totality to individuals who receive high doses of radiation while pregnant.
Does that
What
mean,
could
like-
occur is the first 3, but they have not done enough studies to say if you receive this amount of dosage at pre-implementation, this is an effect. Or if you receive,
So that's not talking about like if you have radiation damage your child inherits some of it too, and then their child inherits some of it too.
It is to a degree,
Okay.
because it's inherited because you received it. You were pregnant with them, so as an outcome, it's hereditarily given to them. But it also wants us to understand that if they receive, because if you have if you're pregnant,
Yeah.
and you go have an X-ray done,
Yeah.
that baby in the embryo is receiving a certain amount of radiation themselves. So not enough studies have been done to determine how much of the radiation they're getting as an outshoot from you receiving it versus what they're receiving directly for themselves.
I got you.
So this is what that last statement is saying. They haven't followed enough women to determine. Because you just think you have to start back from when they were in their mother's womb,
Yeah.
right? Because you want to know how much radiation they could have potentially received.
That's what I was thinking of it the way I was thinking of it. Because like they could be following Chernobyl victims' kids and then their kids as well.
No, this one,
But it hasn't been long enough for us.
no doubling dose concept.
Yes. So no double dose. So double dose to radiation doses that causes the number of spontaneous mutations occurs in a given generation to increase 2 times their original number. So if I receive 5, that dose is gonna increase 2 times that original value. So if I receive 5 gray, so 5 times 2 is
10.
okay. So the radiation doublet equivalent dose for humans, as determined from the studies of the children of the atomic bomb survivors, is estimated to be at a value of 1.56 sieverts. So another little graph that helps us to kind of understand double dose concepts. So percentage of offsprings born in each generation with mutations in the absence of radiation other than background
So just not.
is 7%. And then if you receive radiation due to the environment, such as Chernobyl or Hiroshima, it's 1.56. And then 14% for those offspring born with mutations after receiving double dose. So the 7 represents mutations.
Standard.
Yes, the standard. Any questions over chapter 9? All right, we'll take a break. Those of you who came in late, let me have 2 to 3 minutes with you guys to catch you up to speed.